Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a summer reading wrap up. I have 4 books here, 3 of which I've read completely, and then the 4th I am about 50 pages in, but I do really like it and I want to talk about it. I have 2 non-fiction books, though they are quite different, a classic and a fantasy. It's been a very busy 2 months. I can't believe at the start of last month I was reading the book here and that I was still going to school, but a lot has happened. I've graduated, I started taking driving lessons. My test is on Monday, so hopefully by the time I'm filming my next video I'll have my license. I want to do so much when I can drive. I just want to go to different cafes and libraries to read and write, and I want to go to the cinema every single day. I love movies. I want to rewatch Spider-Man Brand New Day. I watched it 2 days ago and I loved it. I was bawling my eyes out at every little thing. The woman next to me was so sweet and she was asking me after if I was okay because I just had tears everywhere. My nose was swollen and red. If you guys have watched it, let me know what your thoughts were because I love that movie. I'm so excited for the next one, and if it takes another 5 years. Other than it just being busy, I've kind of been in a slump, but I have recently definitely gotten back into the groove of reading, writing, posting videos. So before I start, please make sure to like and subscribe. Like I said, I'm posting more videos and I have so many fun ideas coming up. I posted a video essay last week on the yellow wallpaper, though the yellow wallpaper was a bit of a niche one to start with. The next one I have planned is definitely a lot broader, and I think all readers and writers will want to tune into that. We're gonna start with the first book that I read in June. I did speak about this book previously. I think it was in one of my book hauls. I was halfway through, but I finished it now, and it is Talking with Serial Killers by Christopher Berry. Not very summary, but it's a collection of accounts of different serial killers that Christopher Berry has exchanged letters with and spoken to. So to be honest, last time I spoke about it, I thought that I just wasn't getting it, and maybe because I hadn't read a non-fiction book in a long time that I was just out of the loop and this is just how boring they are. But I really think that after reading a lot of the reviews, a lot of the bad reviews, that thankfully it wasn't just me. So I went into this expecting, of course, for there to be an account of these serial killers, but to be honest, I was expecting maybe a quick account of what these killers did, but then it would just be the exchanges between the author and them, an analysis of their psychological profile. That's kind of what I was expecting by the very dramatic introduction. I've interviewed face-to-face some of the world's most heinous serial killers, spree killers, and mass murderers. I've listened to their sickening tales of murder, most foul, and their boasts of having caused such suffering. But when I read it, I just felt like the writing was very dry, and he basically just told us what they did, and he sprinkled some making fun of them or like making a joke out of them, or just being like, oh, they were so dumb, and like some quotes of what they've told him, and it wasn't great. I don't know, I think it didn't meet my expectations. It was a very lazy account. Like I said, the humor was very dry and it felt out of place, and he just kind of made this out to be a much greater book than it really was. There was very, very little to no psychological analysis. When he discussed the female serial killers, which I'm aware have different social and psychological approaches, he just felt a bit more, not forgiving, but he would say things like, who would have expected this petite, beautiful woman to be able to do this? And she's such an ice queen, he calls her. And I didn't feel like I gained anything from this. Thankfully, the next nonfiction book that I read was much, much better. This author doesn't really have any credentials and he just kind of makes himself out to be much bigger than he is. So the next nonfiction book that I have is London Falling by Patrick Radden Keefe. So this is a real story, again, about a boy who fell from a balcony in London in 2019 to his death in the Thames. This story is kind of about how his parents came to realize that he was lying about his life to a lot of very dangerous and rich people. So as the story goes on, of course, Patrick tells us about the boy and his story and his childhood, but then the mystery of how he died and the events and days leading up to his death, and then his actual death and the mystery of that. So I actually really enjoyed this. The reviews were right. So I read reviews of this also before, and all of the reviews said that the way he writes nonfiction is masterfully masterfully. He not only talks to us about this boy and his story and the grief of his parents and the people around him, but he gives us a very deep history of London, and I learned a lot more from this book than I had expected to. For example, he starts with a description of the Thames and the history of the Thames, and throughout the story we learn about the history of London, the history of Uganda and South Asians in Uganda, and a lot of different things that I really didn't expect to read in this book, but they were very beautifully woven in. And while I might have expected more in the second half, it did feel a tad redundant and maybe could have been shortened. That's also just because of the real result of this case in real life. There's nothing he could have done to change that, and it really just goes to show how unsatisfying it was for the parents as well. I would definitely recommend this though. I did really enjoy it, and I am definitely gonna pick up another one of Patrick's books. I looked into the case afterwards, but to be honest, he told us pretty much everything there is to be told, and I'd be really interested to hear everyone else's thoughts on what they believe might have taken place. Next, we're moving on from the non-fiction books that I read, and the one classic that I read in these last 2 months was Perfume, the story of a murder by Patrick. I need to search these up before. I always tell myself I am and then I forget. Another Patrick. This is a story of a man who was born with an incredible sense of smell, though he himself doesn't smell like anything, and we see how it leads his life and how everyone else's paths around him are woven by this special sense that he has. So this is a book that I've been looking forward to for a very long time. I had listened to Stephanie Sue's narration of the book / movie a couple years ago, and to be honest, the only thing I remembered was the ending and kind of the build up to the ending, but I didn't know any details, and I've been super excited for this book. I love perfumes and scents in novels because, like cooking, I just feel like there is so much you can do, so many different combinations and ideas you can go with. So I went into this with very high expectations, and some of those were met. There are some really lovely scent descriptions, and it's obvious that the author did a lot of research into how perfumes are made. I started this book in a cafe, which was perfect. It has the very classic-y kind of writing, if that makes sense, in that I felt like I was reading an older novel with really cozy writing that's a bit basic, but it has some quotes that really get at you. I do feel like by the end I was a bit bored by the writing, especially because, in my opinion, the narration and story kind of went nowhere. I felt like there was so much potential with this. While I definitely understood the symbolism of the ending, and I thought a lot of the quotes and ideas that were presented at the end were really, really interesting, it was a bit icky, and there's especially one section in the middle, one of the events of his life, that I was just like incredibly bored and unconvinced by. I don't know, it was giving children's book storyline to present a deeper meaning. I'm trying to say this without any spoilers. I hope it doesn't sound incredibly confusing. There's also another complaint that I have is the way the author or the man speaks about women. I know that he is meant to be a selfish, scent-obsessed creep, and we already know that this is a story of a murderer, but I felt some of the descriptions were unnecessary. Specifically, there is a section where a father is speaking about his 15-year-old girl, and he's like wishing that he wasn't her dad, and he's talking about all the things that he would do to her if he wasn't, and that was just like unnecessary, including some of the descriptions of a prepubescent girl's body. I think I'm going to start doing some spoiler reviews in the future as well, because a lot of what I'm saying might not make sense, but if I could reference certain passages and talk about the entire plot, it would. I apologize, this was very vague, but I did enjoy it. If you're a quick reader and you think you can get through this book quickly, then I would recommend reading it. If you're someone that wants to read purposefully and you take a while, then you might be a tad disappointed, but I did enjoy this. The last book that I'm going to talk about is Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. I'm only about 50 pages into this, but I am very much enjoying it. I actually don't know exactly what it's about, and I kind of don't want to read the back now because I'm getting into it. When I was first starting, and I mean first 2 pages, I was really confused and I was tempted to just put this down because I thought it was just going to be another one of those classics that is just incredibly confusing and convoluted. The narrative was very quickly shaped, and I'm really interested to see what happens. I've been looking for a good fantasy, and I think this is gonna be fulfilling my needs. I don't know if I'm gonna get the second and third books very soon because I have so many books TBR. I really want to get through a lot of them before I start buying even more books. I'm really excited for this. I think I mentioned though that I am kind of in a slump when I'm reading fantasy books with longer chapters. The chapters are like 22 pages each here, and it just like, oh. If this book was like 2 times longer but the chapters were shorter, I would read it in 3 days. I think this is gonna be a found family royal drama kind of fantasy, which I love. And that is it for today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sorry if a bit of my descriptions or reviews were all over the place. If you guys want me to also start doing some smaller videos that are like 5 to 7 minutes where I specifically review one book, then I would also not mind doing that. I hope you guys enjoyed. You guys are currently resting on a big stack of books which has been here for weeks, maybe even months, in preparation for this next video, which I've just been too lazy to film. I will see you guys a little bit sooner than next week, hopefully with my license, and goodbye.